What if a demon of shadow and flame were to obtain the greatest weapon in the history of Middle-earth? What power could such a being wield? And with whom would it ally? Today on Nerd of the Rings, we put our regular research into determining what would happen if the Balrog got the One Ring. As always, we pick up our tale at the most likely point of deviation. Unquestionably, today's scenario is when the Fellowship is making their way through the now decrepit realm of khazad-dum. Moria, the Black Pit it is now called, and it is home to bands of orcs and a great dark menace. The date is January 15, 3019. The Fellowship discovers the Chamber of Mazarbul, where they are attacked by a group of orcs before making their escape. As the other 8 members flee through the eastern doorway, Gandalf stands to hold the passage. There, through the closed door, he senses a great power, a counterspell working against his own. As the door bursts asunder, he sees the room enveloped in shadow. The wall and the chamber collapse, and Gandalf returns to the Fellowship, leading them to the bridge of khazad-dum. It came to the edge of the fire, and the light faded as if a cloud had bent over it. Then with a rush, it leaped across the fissure. The flames roared up to greet it, and wreathed around it, and a black smoke swirled in the air. Its streaming mane kindled, and blazed behind it. In its right hand was a blade like a stabbing tongue of fire. In its left, it held a whip of many thongs. Here Gandalf and the Balrog known as Durin's Bane face off upon the bridge. But what if, rather than falling together, the Balrog is victorious? With a snap, the Balrog lashes his whip at the Grey Wizard, binding his arms to his side. With a great tug, Gandalf is flung forward, impaled upon the fiery blade. In this, his final moment, Gandalf knows he has failed. The Balrog lifts the wizard and with a casual flick, drops him into the abyss below. Before they know it, the Fellowship is attacked by the great demon, and no horn, nor bow, nor sword can withstand its coming. With great swipes of its sword and whip, the Balrog kills the Fellowship. Last of all stands a small creature, with drawn sword glowing blue. For reasons not fully known to itself, the Balrog grabs the creature in his hands, and it is enveloped in flame. The creature is reduced to ash, and its blade is but a melted pool of metal. And yet, something remains. A gold band with a glowing red script, a mysterious object that withstood the great fire of Durin's Bane. The One Ring rests in the hand of the Balrog of Morgoth. But what would the Balrog do with such a ring of power? To better inform his next moves, we must debunk a common misconception about Balrogs. They are no mindless beasts. While their depiction is often gigantic creatures of brute strength, their power was more magical, and their presence more human. Moments before his face-off with Gandalf, the Balrog is described as a dark form of somewhat man-shape yet greater. Given its counterspell against Gandalf, it clearly has more than just size and strength at its disposal, though their stature was certainly great, and their fire and power wrought great destruction. Standing in Moria, his enemies vanquished, this being of the same order as Gandalf and Sauron looks upon the One Ring in his hand. It perceives the great power contained within, as the ring seems to grow in size, just as both Isildur and Bilbo had observed during their time possessing it. The Balrog places the ring upon his finger, feeling his own power amplified. He finds the orcs of Moria flocking to his side, drawn to the leadership of the Balrog. Just as Gothmog, the lord of Balrogs of old, Durin's Bane now captains a great force of orcs. And with his now greater power, he seeks to resume his glorious purpose from the days of Morgoth, bring wanton destruction and darkness. For it was the Balrogs, not Sauron, who were most like Morgoth himself. As we find in the Silmarillion, in Utumno Melkor gathered his demons about him, those spirits who first adhered to him in the days of his splendor, and became most like him in his corruption. The Balrog and his orcs exit the nearby East Gate of Moria. and looking out upon the lands of Middle-earth for the first time in over 6,000 years, he espies the nearby forest of Lorien. Over the coming week, the realm of Lorien is consumed in fire and death. Ultimately, the power of Galadriel and her ring are no match for the power of the One and its wielder. In the early days of this struggle, Sauron becomes aware of the Balrog wielding his ring, and is forced to act even earlier than the canon story by nearly 2 months. However, rather than dealing with a mere mortal claiming his ring, he knows the danger the Balrog poses to his very existence. His only option is to come forth from Mordor personally, with a show of force to meet the Balrog in hopes it will ultimately choose to serve him, Morgoth's chief lieutenant. Orcs are summoned from throughout Mordor, along with the Nazgûl. After 2 weeks of preparation, the Dark Lord leads what forces he can out from the Black Gate. All the while, there are others who have learned of what has transpired. Saruman and Denethor, both possessing Palantiri and having similar though different connections to the Dark Lord, are also aware of the great threat in Lorien. Sauron orders Saruman to send his forces to join his own in the Eastmark of Rohan, a realm still under Saruman's sway, as there is no visit from Gandalf to heal Theoden. But Saruman sees this move for what it is, further manipulation by the Dark Lord. Should the Balrog fall in line under Sauron, the wizard would be, at best, third greatest in the new power structure of the world. Saruman instead forms plans of his own. Through his servant Wormtongue, he manipulates Theoden into contacting Denethor for aid. For Denethor's part, he is aware that there is a great danger approaching north of Rohan, though unlike Saruman, he does not have a full picture of what that danger is. Thus, when the call for aid comes from Theoden, Gondor will answer. Now, we don't know the exact number of soldiers that Minas Tirith has at their disposal at this moment. We know they will eventually receive 3,000 soldiers from the southern fiefs, but that will not have happened at this point. Thus, Gondor will send a more conservative 1,500 soldiers from Minas Tirith, while simultaneously putting out the call to the southern fiefs earlier than the canon tale for reinforcements. Meanwhile, the Rohirrim muster their riders, not under Theoden, who remains ill, but his son Theodred, who was never killed, as Saruman had not yet made his first attack upon Rohan to do so. With a Rohan that has not suffered the losses of 2 battles at the Fords of Isen and the Battle of Helm's Deep, they have more soldiers than they would have otherwise. Instead of the 6,000 they take in the canon tale to Minas Tirith, they assemble at least 8,000 Rohirrim, possibly closer to 10. Bolstered by the fighters of Gondor, they now amass at least a 10,000 strong army. As these armies of Isengard, Rohan, and Mordor assemble, the Balrog is likewise unexpectedly bolstered. For nearby Dol Guldur, Sauron had a secondary force of orcs, the ones that in the canon tale lead attacks on Lorien and Thranduil's realm in March 3019. Viewing the destruction of Lorien across the river, the orcs of Dol Guldur join those of Moria in their destruction of Lorien. We will see the ring have an effect on the Balrog. It begins to feel a pull toward the south, the home of the ring's creator. And as with any creature, the ring enhances the natural abilities of its wearer. For hobbits and other mortals, it makes them invisible. For great commanders, it would lead soldiers to flock to their banner. And for powerful beings of an angelic order, demons of shadow and flame, it would increase this power. Thus the Balrog would, like Sauron, send forth a darkening cloud of foreboding, concealing the sunlight in the lands to which it moved. Thus fire consumes the forest of Fangorn, and the Ents are no more. Due to proximity and being most prepared for action, Saruman's army of orcs, uruks, goblin men, and half-orcs meet the forces of the Balrog south of Fangorn Forest. There, the White Wizard makes his move. His orcs deliver Saruman's message, warning that even now, Sauron himself was approaching with an army, made of as many as 30,000, to take the ring by force. Due to the earlier time frame, Sauron's forces are not yet bolstered by the Haradrim and Easterlings, and as a token of his loyalty, Saruman's orcs align with those of the Balrog. Should the Balrog prove victorious, Saruman will be on the winning side, and perhaps through later treachery, will take the ring from his fellow Maya. Should Sauron prove victorious, he will claim that his orc army betrayed him after encountering the Balrog, wielding the One Ring. Yet his insurance is the Rohirrim, a 10,000-strong cavalry which will wreak havoc upon whatever force remains, and cripple the force of Sauron or the Balrog, enough perhaps for Saruman to betray the victor. The Balrog and Sauron and their forces meet upon the Wold, where the mouth of Sauron, face to face with the great demon, makes the best case for victory, that the Balrog should fall in line, giving the ring back to Sauron himself, the chief lieutenant of Morgoth. But would the Balrog view Sauron as his superior? The case can be made either way. Sauron was indeed Morgoth's chief lieutenant, yet the Balrogs were no mere underlings. They were the mightiest of Morgoth's forces. Gothmog, their lord, was the high captain of Angband, yet Sauron was certainly the heir apparent to Morgoth. The Balrog walks past the mouth of Sauron, approaching the Dark Lord himself, submitting to him. Sauron approaches, the prized ring returning at last. But through the ring, the Balrog had perceived the Dark Lord's mind. Far had he strayed from their master's ways. Sauron sought to lord over Middle-earth. Morgoth would have brought destruction and chaos. No, Sauron was not worthy of this prize. The Balrog grabs Sauron by the neck. The ring is his. Claiming the ring for his own and putting forth his full power, Sauron is consumed in flame, and his body is once again destroyed. Sauron's forces are consumed with fear at seeing their great leader defeated before their eyes. The Balrog would be the destroyer his captain once was, yet greater. In awe and fear, just as they serve Sauron, the orcs of Mordor join the Balrog. When the Saruman-influenced army of men arrives, it is to find not a battlefield of two decimated armies, but a united force of darkness. The men of the West fight valiantly to defend the lands of Rohan, and bring great destruction upon the unmounted orcs. Yet they are no match for the might of the Balrog. Eomer, Theodred, and all save a couple hundred men are slain. The survivors ride back to Edoras, bringing word to King Theoden. Realizing everything has gone wrong, Wormtongue abandons Rohan, riding with all speed to Orthanc, hoping for the protection of Saruman. Eowyn now aids the king, and they lead their people to Helm's Deep to prepare for a potential attack by the orc armies of the Balrog. In their care are the wounded from the previous battle, including a young captain of Gondor. Yet the Balrog does not make for Rohan, instead traveling to the stronghold of his unforeseen ally, Saruman. For his part, Saruman pledges fealty to this new ultimate power in Middle-earth, and seeks to become his chief advisor. Meanwhile, the Nazgul are dispatched to Mordor, summoning the remainder of Sauron's armies to make their great war upon the world of men. Thus, the power and might of the Balrog wreaks havoc upon the world, and Middle-earth is engulfed in darkness and flame. The Witch King leads the southern armies in a successful siege upon Minas Tirith, crippling the final realm of men standing in their way. Meanwhile, the Balrog and his northern forces travel north from Isengard, heading toward Rivendell and the last remaining elven ring of power, possessed by Elrond. The power of the Balrog only grows in its mastering of the One Ring, and it begins to realize that the complete destruction of Middle-earth is not only within its grasp, but inevitable. And maybe, with its newfound power, it can destroy the very door of night, and summon back from the void Morgoth himself. Now, admittedly, this is one of the more wild and crazy theories I've had. There just simply isn't a whole lot to go off of when it comes to the Balrog possessing the ring, though it's a very safe bet that nothing good would come of it. But now I turn it over to you. How would you have this scenario play out? And what other what-ifs would you like to see here on the channel? The fires of the Balrog have spread throughout the lands of Gondor, and have begun to take the northlands of Eriador. Saruman is for now safe in his role as lieutenant of Durin's Bane, Though if he wishes for any of Middle-earth to be left for himself to rule, he knows he must act soon. Meanwhile, word has spread to the few remaining kingdoms left standing: the dwarves of Erebor, the men of Dale, and the elves of Mirkwood. As they unite and begin debating what to do, an old figure exits the east gate of Moria, resurrected, given new power, and risen from the depths of Moria. Gandalf the White returns to Middle-earth. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, CCDC Red Team, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.